こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、リーズユナイテッドの田中碧に関する動画です。最近、ワンリーズファンチャンネルからの動画が多くなっていますが、この移籍期間において、本当に毎日のように移籍や補強について話しています。その中から今回も、田中碧について話している部分を切り取っていますが、今回も田中碧と中盤をどのように起用するのか、補強やフォーメーションの変更が必要なのか、ということを話している中で、日本代表の戦い方も参考にし、田中碧を活かせるような戦い方を考えています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょ
う。The thing is with this, Gav, and it's an interesting comment. You know, when he's just mentioning there, Solomon, he's mentioning Buendia. I'm okay with it. It's just the risk again. You've got to be. I think you've got to be 95% sure that a lot of your players are going to be featuring week in, week out. I know during the season, we're not able to predict that completely. But what I do think is at least when we start the season, you've got to have a few of these boxes ticked when it comes to dependability and reliability. Otherwise, there's just no point in.
The question I'd ask Conor is when we look at the table, right, in the Premier League. Just outside the relegation zone, you've got Tottenham, Manchester United, West Ham. Yeah. Do you think a midfield of Buendia, Gus Hamer, and Ethan Ampadu is better than any of the midfields on those teams? I don't. So I think you have to.
But I think we're kind of looking at a period of time now when it comes to the Premier League that Leeds' recruitment has to be 10 out of 10, and we need some luck. So I look at Wolves now, and I'm enjoying what I'm seeing to a certain extent. I'm seeing Man United coming in for Cunha. I'm seeing Wolves, Man City looking like they're about to take 8 Nori, which is massive. And then I'm also looking at, apparently, there's Serie A clubs looking at Strand Larsen, the centre forward. I think Strand Larsen's brilliant. So for me, if you pick players off like that, obviously Wolves have then, I'm sure being the Premier League club that they have been for years now, and the resources they've got, with the money and the pull as well of being that club for a number of years now, they'll be able to bring some replacements in, but the replacements have got to hit the ground running like ours have, so I do think that's kind of what we've got to look at, and that's where I think the luck element comes in. It's bigger teams coming into your West Hams, it's bigger teams coming into your Wolves and picking off a Plaqueta, picking off an Edson Alvarez again, or picking off some of their prized assets, and Leeds recruiting really well in that first season. I think that is the big. Gabe, you're spot on. I don't know if we're going to be able to build a midfield that maybe is consistently going to be top. Well, it is top quality.
I would rather see us go after a long staff and then another high impact number 10 to play with. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think you can have. You're going to hate me for saying this. I don't think you can have Ampadu and Tanaka in the midfield next season and have it be successful. I think it has to be one or the other, and that means our destroyer would have to be upgraded, or we'd have to play a new formation.
It can't, but well, yeah, that's what I mean, because if you just have Ampadu in there and a destroyer, there's no creativity in that pivot.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you wouldn't. So the question is,
can I ask you one thing? In terms of the structure of that midfield, Gabe, it's interesting you mentioned that, because if you've got an out number 10, which I genuinely believe in this era, I think.
Yeah, but he plays a 4-2-3-1. We're going to have a number 10.
But I just don't know if it's the characteristics of, let's say, when Pablo was in there, or previously Samu Saiz, where it's a free roaming role and there's not as much emphasis on them getting back, and it is just about.
I mean, not everyone's going to be a messy number 10, but you're going to have somebody that's going to be like more creative than Brendan Aronson for sure.
I don't think we can have them in the Premier League. I'm not sure we can have a 10, and it's got to be an 8. It's got to be an 8.
You mean someone playing in the 10 position as a forward deployed 8? That's what you're saying.
I think someone who can do a little bit of both, Someone who can do the off-the-ball work, be very defensively decent as well. Like I mentioned. That's
the only reason Brendan Aronson plays the 10, by the way, is because he does that defensive work. It's not because of his creativity, obviously. So the question is, I'm sorry, you were going to ask me an original question. Like,
how Japan set up quite interestingly is in periods where they've had real physical teams up against them. They've played Endo in the pivot, and they played Tanaka alongside, and then just in front they've played Kamada, who's at Crystal Palace right now. But Kamada is a bit of a number 8, and he's a big lad, and he almost compensates a little bit for that, or overcompensates maybe for Tanaka's lack of physicality. Because we know Tanaka's interpretation, perception, defensive work is very good. His off-the-ball work's very good.
Yeah. He can be a top midfielder. The question is he going to be a top midfielder in a potentially relegation threatened side that doesn't really upgrade the other pieces? I think that's what I'm trying to say. Is I don't think And I'm not advocating that we do it, but I don't think Farke upgrades from Ethan Ampadu. I think he'll upgrade the number 10 probably.
I like Ampadu.
To add depth in the midfield.
I
do too, but I don't think that in a double pivot, Tanaka and Ampadu is going to be able to contend in the Premier League.
Yeah, I do agree with you with but you can have a double pivot, but you've got to drag that number 10, as you say, all right, is that you've got to drag that person back and make a 3 at points. You've got to do it because we'll just get overrun in there. So
to get a guy like that who's going to be able to do that, like play both ways and play strong both ways, you're going to pay like upward of 40 million pounds. And that's what I would say we should do it, but because I think we'd be more successful that way, but it puts a lot of eggs into one basket, So look, I think what's probably I'm not advocating for this. Let me just go ahead and say that. Not advocating for this at all. But I think what probably ends up happening, if anything, if we see a midfield shakeup and we don't go in with this kind of midfield, if we see a midfield shakeup, that they'll end up selling a guy like Tanaka, because what we've brought him in for and what we can sell him for.
You think they'd sell Tanaka?
I'm not saying they would. I'm not saying I want them to. I'm just saying that if you decide that Ethan Ampadu is your starting more, like essentially you're starting 6 in a double pivot, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you can contend with Ampadu and Tanaka in the Premier League. I think that Ampadu is really good, but I don't think he's as elite to be able to cover those kind of deficiencies at that pace and physicality level. And it really depends on.
You'd have Vinny Souza, wouldn't you? Vinny Souza of Sheffield United really covers ground well.
I'd have. There's a bunch of other options that we could discuss, but like it's one of those things where it's like I'm not sure. I think you'd have to make a statement signing to come in to improve that position, or you spend a ton of money at the number 10 position. I'm just saying if you roll out Tanaka, Ampadu, and then like Buendia at the 10, I think we're going to be in trouble. I do. So.
Yeah, I agree that the balance doesn't. I think hopefully
that's right. That's what I'm trying to get at is the balance isn't right, and that Tanaka and I think Tanaka could probably play for a top 6 team because he's going to have the kind of cover that is like a 70 million pound player. You know what I mean? Who does all the things a 70 million pound player does. Ethan Ampadu is not that. He's a very good midfielder. I'm not trying to say he's not Premier League level. He is, but he's not Premier League level to play for like Arsenal or to play, you know what I mean? Like he's not that, and to do those things. So for Tanaka to play the kind of game he has and play it as best as he can, he needs that kind of elite supporting cast. I think we probably won't give it to him at Leeds unless so basically you decide are we going to upgrade the number 10 with absurd money and like bring a world-class 10 who is essentially a forward deployed 8, who has all the creativity of a 10 and all the endeavor of an 8. Or are you going to upgrade that, the 6 in the dual pivot or the more defensive one in the dual pivot? I don't think Farke is going to do that. I'm not advocating that he should do that. So it's tough. I'm just saying if anything changes then that midfield, if we don't roll out those two, it's going to be because we sell out Tanaka. And I say that because I look at the paltry money we spent to get him and the money he's probably worth now.
Yeah, no, I get that. There's a big margin. Keep getting your thoughts in the comments, everybody. We'll get them in. Souza was terrible in the Premier. He's a championship player. He's not a championship player, Jinder, and you'll see that at the end of this window, mate. But fair enough, mate. I disagree with you, but fair point. Understand that 10 million we'll get on to Kalvin Phillips in just a little bit. If these rumors are true, we need to quickly build a new hospital, not a stadium for all the boxes.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, good comment, mate. Richard Rios or Anton Stach next to Tanaka, along with AM number 8 in the midfield, please. Interesting people are talking about 8s as well. We've got money, but yes, the problem is we're competing with established Premier League clubs. The 2 seasons out the Prem have made it so hard. Yeah, 100%. I think I sent something to Gabe when it was, I think it was off the BBC, actually. The BBC had just put out, if you guys haven't seen it, the newly promoted side, Leeds United, will want to spend big and strengthen the entire spine of the team and could spend more than 100 million in doing so, which we both know they'll need to. A new goalkeeper, centre-back, central midfielder and striker priorities for the club, which I do like. I think I'm a big fan of just, I mean, you know, the spine.
It's the right positions. We don't need to target a bunch of wingers. We have plenty of talent there.
Yeah, agreed.
We don't need to sign multiple fullbacks with big money. You know what I mean? One thing I do want to throw out there, though, just in terms of because there are a lot of people saying there are no like really creative central attacking players. Yeah, there are, but
I was about to finish the thing and you just interrupted.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
I'm going to start muting you. They're willing to spend 30 million on each of those positions, which could take them past the 120 million quid mark, and then look to move on to bolster options in both fullback positions and the right wing. With interesting that though, isn't it? Very interesting. Right wing. This is something that I've been suggesting. I wonder if they're actually going to do Solomon based on that, because obviously, you know, nothing on the left wing there, fullback positions and right wing, which obviously Solomon won't be brought in for, which is interesting. That's Sky Sports official today as well. So promising when it comes to the spine, Gabe, but fascinating. Could you see us not doing Solomon? Obviously with two effectively left-sided players.
Depends on what Daniel Levy wants to try to squeeze out of us. Like, we're not going to spend 20 million on him. I hope like 11, 12, 13, maybe 15. Sure. I think that's worth it. But,
do you think Mark's right in what he says as well? Everton will be competing effectively for the same players with Kinnear and Hammond on that side now. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Everton, West Ham. I mean, a lot of these teams are going to be every name that we're going to be linked with. They're probably going to be linked.
But I mean, obviously, because they've nicked Kinnear, haven't they, and Hammond as well from Leeds. So I wonder if we're going to be going in for similar signings, or at least a shortlist.
Maybe, but yeah, I think it's because of where the clubs are at and their level of spend and achievement and stuff. I don't think it's really.
I think Telly's spot on as well here as well. Tanaka is going nowhere big. He's going nowhere, to be fair. Big team will not take any risk. I mean, that is true. I think when we're talking about Tanaka, if he is to move to the Premier League, obviously, which I'm sure he wants to stay in.
But then Chelsea goes out and buys like players like Latvia and like, you know what I mean? Like Chelsea does stuff just to bench players and keep them out of the competitive pool. So, it could happen.
次は解説です。ゲストのゲーブは食い気味に話してくることで、オーバーラップすることも多く、よく聞こえないところもありましたが、ボキャブラリーは難しいものもそれほど多くなく、比較的簡単でも便利な表現もありましたので、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。With the money and the pull as well of being that club for...
ザマネー&ザプルという表現は、単にお金があるだけではなく、人を引きつけるブランド力や政治的なコネ、影響力も併せ持っているという意味です。スポーツチームが有力選手を獲得したり、企業が優秀な人材を引き寄せる場合などによく使われます。プルーはここでは、引っ張る力。つまり、人を引き寄せる魅力や力と理解するのがポイントです。このフレーズは、経済的な余裕と社会的な影響力が成功にどう結びつくかを語る場面で非常に役立ちます。
With the money and the pull as well of being that club for with the money and the pull as well of being that club for
I would rather see us go after a long staff and
go after はとても頻繁に使われる駆動詞で文脈によって意味が変わります。基本は何かを追い求めるや追跡することを指し、物理的な追いかけだけでなく、夢や仕事、人材などを手に入れようとするという積極的な意味でも使われます。また、人を言葉で非難したり攻撃したりするときにも使われるので、意味を文脈で判断することが重要です。トイックや日常英会はビジネスシーンでも非常に役立つ語句です。
I would rather see us go after a long staff. I would rather see us go after a long staff.
And if you've got an out and out number 10, which
アウト&アウトは完全にや全くという意味を持つ強調表現です。例えば、真っ赤な嘘という場合、何かが完全に嘘であると伝えたいときに使われます。もともとは、徹底的に外へという意味を含み、限界まで極端にというニュアンスもあります。フォーマルすぎず、カジュアルすぎないため、会話でも書き言葉でもよく使われる便利な表現です。肯定でも否定どちらでも使えますが、ネガティブな文脈で使われることが多いです。
Because if you've got an out and out number 10, if you've got an out and out number 10, which
you're going to pay like upward of 35-40 million pounds.
アップワードオブは数量や金額が何々を超えているという時に使う表現です。モアザンやオーバーと似ていますが、アップワードオブはややフォーマルな響きを持ち、ニュースやレポート、ビジネス文書などでもよく使われます。トイックやアイエルツなどの試験でも、読解セクションで数値を強調する文脈で登場することがあります。 正確な量ではなく、最低限これ以上という意味で理解することが大切です。
You're gonna pay like upward of 35, 40 million pounds. You're gonna pay like upward of 35, 40 million pounds. But it puts a lot of eggs into one basket, you know.
Put all your egg in one basket は、すべての卵を一つのカゴに入れるという直訳の通り、すべての希望をお金、努力などを一つの選択肢や機会に集中させてしまう危険性を警告する表現です。もしそのカゴが落ちたり壊れたりすれば、全部を一気に失ってしまうという教訓を含んでおり、ビジネスや投資、人生の選択の場面でよく使われるイディオムです。日本語で言うと、一か八かにかける、排水の陣、一本勝負、などが近いニュアンスです。
But it puts a lot of eggs into one basket, you know. But it puts a lot of eggs into one basket, you know. Are we going to upgrade the number 10 with absurd money?
アブサードは常識的に考えてありえない、理にかなっていないというニュアンスを強く含む形容詞です。例えば、非現実的なアイデアや納得できない主張、極端に高すぎる値段などに対して使われます。少し感情がこもった否定の表現としても効果的です。リディキュラスやノンセンスと近い意味ですが、アブサードはややフォーマルで文学的な響きもあります。英会話やトイックの読解問題などでも出題される重要語句です。
Are we going to upgrade the number 10 with absurd money? Are we going to upgrade the number 10 with absurd money? I'm not advocating that you should do that.
アドバケートは提唱するや擁護するという意味で、政治、社会運動、法律の文脈でよく使われる単語です。動詞として使うときは、サポートよりも積極的な支援のニュアンスがあり、何かを公に強く進める、推奨するという意味になります。名詞としては、特定の信念や団体、権利のために声を上げる人を指します。トイック、英検、大学入試など、あらゆる試験で品質する語彙なので、動詞と名詞の両方の用法をしっかり覚えておくと効果的です。
I'm not advocating that you should do that. I'm not advocating that you should do that. And I say that because I look at the paltry money we spent to get him.
パルトリは、がっかりするほど少ない、みすぼらしい、といったネガティブな意味を持つ形容詞です。数量が少ないこと自体よりも、期待外れ、価値がない、といった失望感を含んでいるのが特徴です。例えば、しょぼい給料やくだらない言い訳というような場合に使われ、批判や不満を表現する際に効果的な単語です。ビジネス英語やニュース記事でも見かける語なので、語彙の幅を広げたい人には必須です。
And I say that because I look at the paltry money we spent to get him, and I say that because I look at the paltry money we spent to get him,
and then look to move on to bolster options.
ボールスターは何かをもっと強くする、支えるという意味の動詞で、例えば、経済、信頼、自信、組織体制など、目に見えるものにも見えないものにも使えます。似た単語に、ストゥレンクさんやサポートがありますが、ボールスターは、より補強して底上げするというニュアンスを含みます。ビジネス文書やニュース記事でもよく見られる言葉で、トイックや英検でも品質です。
And then look to move on to bolster options. And then look to move on to bolster options.
いかがでしたか？日本代表での戦い方は、ダブルボランチに田中碧を置き、隣にいるのは遠藤航であり、その前には守備でもサポートしている鎌田大地もいる、という配置や、戦い方が、田中碧を生かすことにもなっているという感じでしたね。田中碧に守備的な欠点があるのかどうかは私には分かりませんが、確かに遠藤航と鎌田も含めて、それだけではないと思いますが、組織的にチームで守るということは、そういう弱点や穴を見せないためには、重要なことでしょう。田中碧の隣に森田英正を置いたり、左のウイングには中村敬斗を、右には伊東純也を置けば、リーズもかなり良い戦いができるんじゃないでしょうか。日本人を獲得する可能性もある話ですので、そういう世界線が想像できるのは、ただただ楽しめるものだと思います。また今後もこういう話が続いていくでしょうから、できる限り扱っていきたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。